Hello world of YouTube. I've shown this off everywhere else, but I got this over the weekend, so that's exciting. And welcome to another fright-filled episode of Expectations Reality. My gaming show where I break down my expectations of what I hope to get out of a game before dishing out the reality of what my experience was actually like. And I'm excited to bring you guys this episode because I enjoy the franchise in question. It's the spooky season. I loved making last year's episode on the Resident Evil 3 remake. And it's a game that came out this year, so I get to be a little topical at that. I'm talking about the latest entry in, again, the Resident Evil franchise, Resident Evil Village. A game that is a sequel to what I would consider the biggest casting forth this game into a new renaissance that we had seen in a while, and even if it's coming off of the heels of one remake that I thought was relatively underwhelming, was also off of the heels of a remake that I genuinely really enjoyed. It was on my anticipated games of the year list. I'm excited for Resident Evil Village. I've liked where Capcom is taking the Resident Evil franchise so far. I'm hoping that Village continues down that path. It looks great from what I've seen. Like, I like the visuals. It has that same RE Engine touch that I really enjoy. So I'm hoping that it's gameplay-wise the same quality at least. You know, while last year I talked about being really hesitant going into a Resident Evil 4 remake, I also was still very excited for another entry in this franchise because Resident Evil 7 left me with so many questions, some of which get answering in some regards, and some of which are just kind of left in the past. I was also just excited to see where Ethan was going to go next. You know, when the trailers were dropping and Lady D was making the rounds with the memes, it just got me even more excited for what this game had going on. You know, I thought that the setting felt very homage-ish to Resident Evil 4, which was something I was hoping to see more of, and thankfully there was. But I liked that the series was still finding ways to keep the horror there, but branch out the world, as it were, still. You know, 20 years into this franchise's existence, and they're still doing other fun, kooky things. You know, they had Lycans in the trailer, and I thought that was exciting, you know, because it's another sort of adjacent mythical creature in a world of, you know, science experiments gone mad. It just felt like it was breathing different life into a franchise that I didn't necessarily need it, but was always nice to see. And as far as my thoughts on Resident Evil Village as a whole, I think that with all of the trailer hype and everything going into it, it pretty much met my expectations and exceeded them to a decent degree. You know, I think that for all of the flashiness and mysticism that was seen in the trailers, this game goes even farther off the deep end. It acts as a great bridge between the grounded, supernatural adjacent reality that was in Resident Evil 7 into the fantastical and strangeness seen in a lot of this franchise's other numerical entries. I like this sort of mystery and kind of getting swept up into everything that happens in the beginning of the game, but I feel like once you get your footing and you're able to explore this European village and adjacent properties, there's a lot to be found here. While I was shocked at some places the plot went as early as it did, I felt like it left the door open for some genuinely great moments that act as some of the scariest the franchise has seen thus far. As far as the controls are considered, it's about the same as Resident Evil 7. You know, Resident Evil 7 I wouldn't say is like a tight experience. You know, it's got some sloppiness to it that I feel like the game reins in a little bit. You know, while it does still feel like Resident Evil 7 at points for how compact it makes you feel, the world is definitely opening up to you. The set pieces feel more consistently huge. You know, the boss fights aside, you know, the fact that we're exploring this castle or these rampant sewer systems, you know, it's clear that the world is a lot more opened up in this entry, and again, it sort of acts as a good bridge between two sets of the fandom while also wrapping up some well-rounded seeds planted in 7 in a way that I was very happy to see as well. I'm going to be getting into somewhat spoilerish territory, so I'm going to put a time code on screen here to tell you where to skip to, because I want to talk about the story a bit and how the game kind of progresses as it goes along. But I do want to give those that are watching this a chance to just jump to my dislikes, I should say, because I'm going to go from here to my dislikes. But as far as a story is considered, you know, while it starts off with the mystery of why is Chris killing Mia and taking Rose, your daughter, you know, Rose's importance, I like that still feels like a cemented, you know, thread throughout the game. You know, I enjoy the twists and turns it takes. I didn't expect Lady D to happen as early as she did in the story, and I was shocked, and it left me even more anxious because I didn't really know what was going to be next now. I was expecting her to be, you know, a much bigger focus, and while I could see some people getting upset at that, I actually genuinely loved that the biggest focal point as far as the ad campaign for this game goes mostly focused on the first big boss of the game. You know, because I like the prologue. I think the prologue gets a bit lost in itself, and it's easily a portion of the game that I felt like could have been slimmed up a little bit, but it feels, again, very Resident Evil 4-ish in presentation. Every other set piece after that, with the exception of Moreau's section to a degree, but I'll get to that in the dislikes portion. But I loved the structure of Lady D's castle. I thought that it was great. You know, I loved the taking down of the sisters before taking down Lady D herself. It feels like a pocket adventure in itself. And don't even get me started on the Duke. I fucking love the Duke. He's easily as great to me as the Merchant, if not a little less. You know, I really love the Duke's personality in this game. I love that he is the house, or he gets you started on some of the smaller subquests in the game, like the recipe subquest, which I didn't even know was to get your maximum health up. But I thought that was really, really cool. You know, I appreciate the sphere ball puzzles as well. Like, there's a lot of little things like that that feel very them integrating Resident Evil 4 design choices into the first-person Resident Evil world. But I think it does so very, very well. And I think it's a lot of fun. You know, there's a lot of layers to the game to dig through. And I appreciate that. I encourage you to explore this big-ass place. You know, I enjoy that aspect of Village a hell of a lot. And then to go from that into what is easily one of my favorite sequences, and I know it's a fan favorite sequence as the game has been out, but the House Benvenuto is easily some of the most tense and uneasy and just anxious I felt throughout an entire Resident Evil experience. You know, it feels very surreal. It feels not very Resident Evil in a way that I actually genuinely enjoy as far as a level's pacing and you know, its gameplay loop of its own. I think it's fantastic. You know, I think that the back half of it with the baby is terrifying, and I love how that also plays into the thematics of the story, as does Lady D's portion. You know, you are taking apart her family before her eyes, while the House Benvenuto is sort of deconstructing yours. You know, Moreau, it's a cool set piece. I don't mind the boss fight, but it's a bit underwhelming, especially coming off of a great 1-2 punch that was
Castle Dimitrescu
and
House Benevento.
I've heard some people complain about Heisenberg's area, but I like Heisenberg's area. It feels like the most stupid Resident Evil it can get without losing sight of the tension scene throughout the game thus far. You know, I've heard people say that the modified cyber bad guys are pretty dumb, and I don't mind them. I actually think they add another dynamic shift in creature style in this game that I can give a huge amount of credit to. I think the creature design, or the focus on the types of creatures, is even more broad than I thought it was going to be, and I appreciate that about it. However, I think that the Heisenberg section is great. You know, I think it's big. It's very similar to the Lady D Castle, and it bookends the adventure with these two beefier sections that have a lot more going on. I think that the boss fight with the propeller head dude is super tense, you know, even more tense than Heisenberg's fight, and I appreciate the overall general body horror side to that part of the game in a very cybernetic sort of way. As far as the back end of the game with Chris and stuff, I thought it was a bit much. It's a Chris portion though, so I kind of expected it to be stupid as hell, because even after, especially after Heisenberg referenced Resident Evil 5 with his dialogue about Chris, but even it kind of exceeded how stupid I thought it was going to be. But I I like a lot of the parts after that. I actually think that the fight in the finale is really, really good. And I think that the sequence when you come back to Ethan after Ethan dies is fantastic. I love the twist that Ethan was goo the whole time, because I didn't see that coming whatsoever, but it made a lot of the plot come together in a great way. You know, why would I care about Rose if she's already chopped up into these 4 cubes? Well, it's because she's part goo, stupid. You know, and I like that. I like that that just happens. You know, it's insane. And then I loved how from that point forward, even with the Chris portion, you find out more about Miranda and the people who form this place, and the fact that they are not only tied to the goo, the fungus in Resident Evil 7. She also has ties with the Spencer family, and that's why you've been seeing the Umbrella logo throughout your entire adventure. You know, again, just that alone helps bridge this story in with the rest of it so very well. You know, I appreciate a lot of what this game has to do in that regard, and I think that it is, again, a lot of what I loved about 7 ramped up to another level, which is what I expected out of a sequel in this series. You know, I also, again, I really love the final boss fight. I think that the phases within it are really, really good. Even if I had issues with the fight, it was easily the hardest sequence I had throughout the entire playthrough. But I really liked the fight. I thought it was stylish. I thought it felt like a good final boss fight. And it kind of, again, ended things off in a really good place. Obviously, the story throughout its end kind of continues to cement a sort of new generation of characters in Resident Evil. And I was talking about this with a friend of mine, but I don't see any problems with that personally. You know, if Sherry Birkin comes back into a more prominent role, I'd be perfectly fine with that. I loved her presence in Resident Evil 6. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I could see. You know, the Barry's daughter from Resident Evil Revelations 2 could also come in, you know, and be more of one of the old adult heads in the character rotation, you know? I don't know, the future Resident Evil, to me, is brighter than ever, and I really liked Village. I thought it was a great game. I don't think it was perfect. And those that skipped to this point in the video, my biggest dislikes with the game are some of the sections that I've kind of been a bit more specific about in the spoilery section, but I feel like the third area in general was just a lackluster portion after the first 2 did a great job at getting you into the story and getting into the world and selling the game to you. I feel like by the time you get to the third area, the third big boss area, it's just not, it's a cool set piece, but I didn't like the villain as much, and I didn't like the overall tone of it at all. You know, I just thought it was a point where the story kind of flopped. And the fourth boss fight, while, you know, big and sort of amped up to infinity, I even thought it was a bit much. Like, I was like, alright, this is getting to be a bit obnoxious, you know, as far as, like, drawing me out of the overall experience I've had so far. I liked the fourth area, but I definitely thought the boss fight was a very underwhelming portion. But other than that, I think that Resident Evil Village is a fantastic piece of this series that I love so very much. You know, while I understand some people's concerns with the character of Ethan himself as this sort of just vacant form, I don't mind it in Village, nor do I mind it in 7. You know, he's not my favorite protagonist, but I think he's purposefully the way that he is. You know, I liked Village a lot, and it definitely brought me a same feeling that I enjoyed when I was first playing a game like 4, you know? But all in all, I think that this game is great. I think that this game is another notch in a franchise in a positive way. You know, it gave me what I was hoping for as far as a sequel to a game that I really enjoyed. It helped fill in some of the blanks left behind by that game, while also tying narrative threads together so very well. And yeah, it's all about family, and I'm cool with that. This game, honestly, even in spite of its flaws, I think is very much worth your time. It's easily one of the best games I played this year. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's definitely one of the best games I played this year. And I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. I think that it's very, very good. I think that, again, some of the pitfalls that happen in the later portions of the game definitely hold the game back. I also think that Mercenaries mode isn't nearly as fun as it is in the original games that it was introduced in, but I think that it's a decent adaptation of that style into the game. I just think that it isn't nearly as good as any other Mercenaries. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Resident Evil Village. Did you like this game? What were some of your favorite moments? Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked this review on it, be sure to give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdy content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons. If you want to join the ranks to get early access to content, exclusive content, or to help drive the community, it's linked in the description. I'm going to get out of here, though. Thank you again so very much for watching. I have been Viral Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.